Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first session of Empowering Beyond 2021. My name is Joe Frampus. I'm a partner at Avasant, and it is my pleasure and honor to introduce to you today our first speaker. His name is Justin Erbacci, and he is the CEO of LA World Airports.
Good morning. I'm Justin Erbacci, Chief Executive Officer of Los Angeles World Airports. Today I'll be sharing a few thoughts on how LAX is leveraging innovation and technology to answer the challenges of our current times, as well as creating a next-generation digital marketplace for our guests. As we move out of this pandemic and reimagine the airport experience, we are taking this moment to create a better experience and meet travelers where they are. Often, that means in the palm of their hand or with digital on-demand services. LAX is one of the busiest airports in the world, welcoming guests from around the globe and serving as a front door to Los Angeles. We are in the middle of a $14.5 billion transformation that will bring LAX an automated people mover with a long-awaited connection to regional transport, a new parking facility, a consolidated rental car facility, and fully modernized terminals. Our capital program is among the largest and most ambitious in the country, and technology and innovation are interwoven into all of our plans. While we already were on a journey to adopt new technology that enhances the passenger experience, the onset of the global pandemic helped us to accelerate our plans in many ways. In the first days of that pandemic, I formed a recovery task force, which included looking at ways to adapt existing innovation to better serve our guests, while also developing bold new solutions. Integrating touchless technology into the passenger journey was a high priority. We were the first U.S. airport to have 100% touchless TSA checkpoints, and we integrated new biometric touchless technology into the customs process for arriving international passengers. We also looked at other touch points, such as installing touchless water fountains and sinks. And passengers can now control some of our baggage check-in kiosks with their own phones, as well as order food on their phone for touchless pickup or delivery service to the gate. In terms of testing new technologies, LAX was the first U.S. airport to introduce a large-scale thermal imaging pilot to detect passengers with elevated body temperatures. Later on, we were the first to deploy a full-scale on-site laboratory to process rapid COVID-19 PCR and antigen tests at the airport, and we had a total of more than 95,000 tests provided to date. We are continuing this work in partnership with airports and airlines around the world. From testing health passports to creating a framework for bridges that could help reestablish safe international travel, we are working with some of the most creative minds in the industry to develop and test new ideas. Innovation also drives how we design and build our new infrastructure. Our automated people mover train system, upon opening, will revolutionize the way people travel to, from, and around LAX. And we just opened the new West Gates at Tom Bradley International Terminal for domestic and international flights, bringing state-of-the-art biometric boarding capabilities to every gate. The new facility also offers touchscreen kiosks and digital wayfinding, along with Wi-Fi technology and sustainable features built right into the building. This is only the beginning. We currently are installing LAX's first smart parking system. This $300 million project will reimagine vehicle wayfinding, valet services, contactless checkout, reservations, and more. As Los Angeles prepares to welcome people across the globe, and as we lead up to the Olympic and Paralympic Games of 2028, we will continue to work to deliver gold standard airport experiences worthy of the city of Los Angeles and the world.
So Justin, I thought your speech was very good and well done. But I have a couple questions about that. And kind of interesting, you talk about the recovery task force that you put together right afterwards. I have to believe that was like herding cats. I kind of more interested in how did you actually able to pull that off, because I think you've done some great things in the airport since the start of the pandemic.
Well, what we had to do was we had to put ourselves in a situation to be able to be flexible and act quickly. And the task force was one way for us to do this, to get the right groups of people together on a regular basis to be able to identify what the issues were and what are the options for us to be able to do to meet some of the challenges we had. So we had several different task forces, and we tried to divide it up into the key areas. So we had one that was focused on how do we keep the airports as safe, as clean, as healthy as possible for our airport employees and for our passengers. And then another one was how do we focus on getting the customers back, the passengers coming back to the airport and flying again. And then we had to focus also on our construction projects that we had going on. And there was actually one silver lining in the pandemic, is that with the decrease in traffic, we had less congestion for people and vehicles in the central terminal area of the airport, and that gave us the opportunity to accelerate some of the projects that we were doing from a construction standpoint.
Now, did you have any? What were some of the hardships or some of the things or the challenges you had to overcome to get that?
So there were a lot of new things. This was an unprecedented event. And so a lot of situations arose that we never really had to deal with again before. So we were in a situation where we had to work with our partners to try to deal with them. Classic example is we never had to work with CDC and CBP to screen passengers who were coming in from an international location to see whether or not they were ill. And if they were ill, how did we then take them to a quarantine without putting them in a situation where they can endanger the rest of the passengers and the employees. So that type of a situation. To facilitate this, we set up task forces with all of our key stakeholders. So we had an airline task force that we met with at least weekly to identify all the issues on the airlines. We had a concessions task force that we discussed with the issues with the concessionaires. And then we had a federal agency task force with CBP, TSA, FAA, and ourselves to figure out all of the issues that we had to deal with in light of the pandemic.
Wow, that's an awful lot of meetings every week. I can imagine.
It was a lot, but it was crucial. The collaboration of the different groups and stakeholders with us was essential to helping us get through this. Because again, we had to act quickly, we had to be flexible, and we couldn't do it successfully without everybody being in lockstep. So these task force meetings with this close collaboration really was an essential part of us getting through the pandemic.
So Justin, I want to talk about the thermal imaging a little more. And it's really, and I think of it, when I first saw it and when you first talked about it, the first thing I thought about was security and privacy. You know, the fact that you can keep someone's temperature now, is the scanner today, that imaging, is it inside? Is it inside after, well, is it after you go through TSA, or is it before?
So we had set up the thermal imaging pilot right as you walked in to the international terminal. So before you got to TSA. So as you walked into the door of the terminal, you walked through this portal, and basically that's where the cameras were scanning your body temperature.
Whether you actually were traveling or not.
That's correct. So just entering the terminal.
Okay. So, oh, that's interesting. So then people weren't really, they weren't really care one way or the other.
At that point, no, they really didn't mind. And most of the passengers that we spoke to and surveys we did afterwards, they really liked the fact that we had that technology there, because they felt safer, because they felt that everybody that they were going to be interacting with inside the terminal would have gone through this, and they could be assured that they don't have a fever or enhanced body temperature.
Now, this imaging, is it just for body heat? You know what my first head went to? It went to, well, what if somebody's carrying a gun? I mean, it won't detect that, right? Or would it?
No, it wouldn't detect that. It was meant just to detect body temperature.
Okay.
And so you'd see the thermal. You could literally, as people walk through, you would see on the screen what their body temperature was. And of course, if they were above 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, then an alert would happen, and to make sure that the medical professionals that were there, would then see that the person has this enhanced body temperature, and they would then go and ask them to please step aside for a secondary screening.
Okay, what was the percentage in the pilot?
We had a very low percentage of people who actually had enhanced body temperatures.
And how cooperative were they? Did they go and have more tests taken? Did they not travel? Kind of what some of the results?
So what would happen is that if somebody was flagged as having an enhanced body temperature by the initial screen, they would be brought to a secondary screening where a health professional would conduct a secondary temperature check to confirm whether or not the body temperature was enhanced. And then if it was still enhanced, then they would ask them a series of questions about other symptoms. And at that point, because it was a pilot, we didn't prevent anybody from not traveling, but we gave them recommendations based upon what our county health department would recommend, that basically saying the county health department recommends that you don't fly if you have enhanced body temperature.
So now, is the pilot still going on, and are you going to put this in every terminal now, or what's the plan?
So the temperature scanning pilot is completed, and when we finished that, there was some discussions with the FAA and others about whether or not airports could actually spend airport money on these types of temperature check technologies. And while that was happening, the big thing that came out was testing. So we focused all of our attention on testing at that point, and that's COVID-19 testing.
Right.
And then we just basically shelved the pilot for now.
Oh, okay. So it's something that's not going to move forward.
Right now,
at this point,
we don't have plans to move it forward, but we think that there's a lot of usage for that, not only for the pandemic itself, but for long term, because this is not going to be the first outbreak of any type of illness, not something hopefully never so as severe as COVID-19, but there's always outbreaks of different types of diseases and viruses. And so, if you look at Asia first put this type of technology in place, back when they had SARS.
Yep.
And they're still using that technology today. So we think that there is room for it, and it's a very good solution to have. We're just going to have to work it out with the FAA and the airlines about how we can implement it in the future and what's the best way to do that.
So that brings up to the point of the COVID-19 testing facility you have, or this. And now, is that in every terminal, or you plan on putting that in every terminal?
Right now we have it in 3 different terminals, and then we have a site in the kind of like in the middle of the terminals.
By the international.
So we have one site in the international terminal. We have one in Terminal 2 arrivals, and we have one in Terminal 6 arrivals.
Oh, in arrivals.
In arrivals, because there's more space there for us to be able to set them up. And then we have the lab itself is right next to the theme building, right across the street from Terminal 6.
So, because I guess I could see if somehow you got with the FAA and whatever monies had to be appropriated to put the scanners and the imaging in, I could see where somebody comes in, they're elevated, to be safe, let me take a test, instead of right there in, I guess, departures or somewhere, versus it sounds like it's when people are coming in that they get checked more than anything. So how would somebody know whether to get checked if they come in through arrivals?
So the the facilities, the testing facilities being used by passengers who are both arriving and departing.
Oh, they are departing. Okay.
Yes, so it could be, we just located them in the arrival section because we had more space there.
Oh, okay. I
But
see.
they're used by passengers coming or going. And we believe that the biggest use for them will be for passengers who are traveling to a destination that requires
proof
of a negative COVID test. So they'll take that test then before they travel.
Now, is that a cost to the traveler? So how's that all work?
So right now, COVID-19 tests are normally compensable through your insurance companies.
Yes.
But the way it's working right now in our solution is that you pay up front,
Okay.
and then you can take the bill and get reimbursed by your insurance company.
Okay. Interesting.
We're now working with some of these health pass providers.
Right.
And we're integrating our COVID-19 test solution with these health paths providers. So when you have the test, they will send your results directly to your health pass provider. So then you can have a digital proof that you've taken the test, or that you have a negative COVID test, and you can carry that with you throughout your journey, so it's not paper and everything else.
So how do you plan on using that in the future? Is it just for people to come in, and how are you going to utilize that technology in the future here?
So the testing is going to be, we believe it's going to be very important for a long period of time, because we believe that in order for the borders to open up and international travel to start again, that countries are going to require that people have either a negative COVID-19 test or proof of vaccination, or perhaps both, or at least a test for a negative PCR test before they're allowed to get on an airplane to certain countries. So this testing will definitely be important to enable international travel again. We also saw many people who just chose to take the tests just for their own edification, to make sure that before they left or when they arrived, that they were, COVID-free.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So you talked about international travel, and one of the things that caught my eye in your speech was you talked about these healthcare passports, and you talked about air bridges. So first of all, I don't know what an air bridge is, and it's all around international travel. So I get the fact that people may want this passport or whatever. So if you could help me understand, what's the air bridge with international travel, and how these passports come into play?
So an air bridge is a way to facilitate the startup of international travel again, while giving the country where people are coming in the ability to kind of protect themselves against certain locations that may pose a higher risk for COVID-19 spread. So an air bridge is basically a setup between two different locations. In our case, we're doing with airports, where in order to get around certain travel restrictions, whether they be whole out restrictions or quarantine that's required upon entry, that you would allow passengers to show proof of either a COVID-19 test that's negative or a vaccination, and with the presentation of that, they can then get on the airplane and arrive at the destination that they need to go to. And the air bridge concept gives the countries the ability to impose different types of restrictions and requirements based upon either the person themselves, if you think about vaccination, or the country that they're coming from.
Oh, okay. So this makes, I guess this, for the traveler, it makes it a little easier, so then they won't be burdened on when they land someplace in another country or that.
Yeah, but it actually gives them the opportunity to travel to a location that otherwise was restricted.
Right. Now, one thing I want to talk about is the future a little bit. I know you're excited about what is going to happen. You have the Olympics coming up in a couple of years. It's, we all think of it, oh my God, it's 7 years from now, but I mean, in your area, it's probably too fast. Yeah. So I understand the people mover. I understand so kind of your vision a little bit on how you see the airport morphing and transforming over the next few years.
So we're in the midst of a $14.5 billion transformation program, and that's focused on two main areas. One is focused on making it easier for people to get in and out of the airport, and then the other one is focused on really improving or redeveloping our terminals to make them much more pleasant for our passengers. So on the getting in and out of the airport side, we have our automated people mover, which is going to connect our terminals to the metro here, so people can take public transportation all the way into the airport terminal for the first time ever. And it's also going to connect with a consolidated rental car facility and an intermodal transportation facility, which is basically a remote parking lot and a pickup and drop off area outside of the central terminal area.
And that will that mean you will take the parking away from inside the terminal or from the terminals today?
No, it will be just a different option. So it'll be a less cheaper option, so it's more of an economy parking lot. So it'll be less expensive to park in this lot and take the people mover in, as opposed to parking into the central terminal area. But we'll still have parking available in the central terminal area.
Because that seems, and it's it looks like it's only about a mile or two away from the airport, so it's relatively close. So I would think that parking, as you know, I've been in and out of this airport for several years now, and I can see where not having to go into the airport itself with a car is much more desirable or parking outside is much more desirable than transversing through the airport.
Absolutely, and we're counting on that, not only for parking, but again, we're going to have a remote curb there as well. So you can get picked up or drop off from this location as well. So you can have a pickup and drop off point for different modes of transportation, including private pickup and drop off at that location. So you can pick up or drop off your family member or your friend outside and at this intermodal transportation facility, and not have to drive all the way into the central terminal area.
Okay. Oh, that's good. So with the Olympics coming, what other fascinating and innovative things do you think are going to come down the road? Give me your vision.
So certainly we are transforming our facilities. We are going to, we've touched in the last 5 years and all of the terminals we're touching, I should say, within the last 5 years. And by the Olympics, you're going to have modernized terminals and some new terminals as well. So these will be new state-of-the-art facilities that will provide much better customer experience than the old ones that we had here. So that's a very important part of what we're doing. The access in and out of the airport is going to be revolutionized as well. And we're actually in the process, we have an environmental document out right now for further enhancements, and that is we would be building some airfield improvements, so we're going to improve the airfield. We're also going to be building a Concourse Zero, which is a new 9-gate concourse that would attach to Terminal 1. And part of this would be a Terminal 9, which is a new international terminal that would be east of Sepulveda, next on the south side of the airport, to the east of Terminal 8.
Okay.
And then we are going to be developing a new roadway access into and out of the central terminal area that will really alleviate a lot of the congestion that people see today in getting in and out of the airport. So these are all planned to be done. If our environmental document gets through, these will be all planned to be done by the time the Olympics take place in 2028.
Wow, exciting times! Exciting.
Definitely
times.
Is exciting. And in addition to the facilities and all this construction, we're also going to go through and developing a digital marketplace that will allow passengers to basically avail themselves of all of the services and get any information they want through their mobile device long before they get to the airport if they want, certainly while they're there. And if we pair that up with the smart parking we've talked about, and it'll be absolutely a digital experience for people to be able to control their journey when they come to the airport.
So is this app, this is an airport app that you're envisioning, or how does that work?
We certainly will have all of this available through our airport channels,
Mm-hmm.
but when we develop all these services and all this information like parking and concessions, and be able to order and purchase food and retail, we will integrate those offerings through third-party services as well.
Right.
So we will basically provide an API that would be able to be integrated into all third-party apps. So, for example, you could have an airline app that while you're in your airline app and you're checking in, you can then go on there and get our smart parking solution, our shopping and dining solution, and any other third-party services that we as the airport offer be integrated through an airport app, or an airline app, or any other third-party application.
So let's talk about it. So I have a Starbucks app. So, and I know there's Starbucks sitting in the airport. So how does that play into the food and some of the services that you're providing? Would go into that app, or do I go into the airport and click on there's Starbucks? How's that integration? Is it just through APIs?
Yes. So we're not so vain as to think that everybody that comes to the airport is going to download an airport app, right? And so we recognize that people like to interface through different apps of their own choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we want to be able to do is allow our services to be available through whatever channel the passengers choose that they want to interact with. And so, it requires us having agreements with all of
the
these
third
third
parties
parties that they can adopt our API and integrate our services. But we think that there'll be compelling reason for them to do so, because nobody's going to want to have to develop this for every single airport.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. That's pretty neat on what's going to happen there. Well, Justin, I want to thank you for the time today. I think this was a fascinating. What you're doing is just unbelievable. I'm already beginning to see some of the transformation that's going on at LA Airport, and I know it's going to continue under your leadership. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here today. It's been a pleasure.